Today we're sitting down on the porch with Judy, a QHS member whose life is as heartwarming as a home-cooked meal. What paths did she follow to get to where she is today? Let's take a stroll down memory lane and see what's been cooking behind the scenes.
My name is Judy and I have been using my two white devices since June this year, but have been a member since last December. I have been fortunate not to have had any serious health issues, but the bioscan I did with Darlene did show some underlying concerns. I think this may be coming from my teeth, as they were very heavily filled as a child, and I don't think I had any molars that didn't have an amalgam filling. It only became a concern in my 40s when the cusp of my molars started to break off, so I had my amalgams removed and replaced with porcelain fillings that were glued in to give more stability. I have also had 5 root canals and 4 crowns, 2 of which are implants. If I had known the dangers of root canals back then, I would not have gone down that path, and I'm now doing a series of detoxes to see if this may help. I have lost count of how many times I have sprained my ankles playing sport as a youngster. I now have a weakness in that area, so have to be very careful walking on uneven ground. This was how I ended up breaking both my 5th metatarsals and my arms near the wrist. I joined QHS because their focus was on healing humanity, and I am fully on board with that. But it was the technology coming out that really blew my mind, and what's not to like about the QArc experience. My grandchildren live on the Gold Coast of Australia, so I only get to see them once or twice a year. I want to be able to share more of their life and not just be a face they see on FaceTime. I have a good support network of friends, but it would be lovely to meet a special someone that is like-minded to share in my future. I am where I was divinely guided to be, so thank you QHS and all the wonderful people making this happen. My ancestors came out to New Zealand in the 18th and early 19th century when land was being given out to early settlers. They were Protestant Irish, Scottish and English, making me 3rd and 4th generation on my father's side and 1st on my mother's. My paternal grandparents were married for 65 years and got to celebrate their diamond wedding anniversary. My grandfather joined the 1st Battalion of the New Zealand Rifle Brigade in World War I and got wounded in Passchendaele. He gave the doctor strict instructions that they were not to amputate his arm because he was a farmer and he needed both to work. He used to show us the bullet hole in his shoulders when we were kids. My grandmother was the oldest of 10, and when she was 17, her mother died in childbirth and she became the surrogate mother to all her siblings. My paternal grandfather was born in Ireland and moved to Canada with his parents. He homesteaded next to my grandmother's brother, and that was how they met. They got married and came to New Zealand on their honeymoon and ended up staying. He was a dairy farmer, and when he retired, he owned and trained his own racehorses. My grandmother was born in British Columbia, but her parents originated from Scotland. My parents grew up together and sat next to each other at primary school. They were very loving and nurturing and both had a great sense of humour, so we always had laughter in the house. We were brought up to be strong and independent, and can't was not in our vocabulary. Dad was a high country sheep and cattle farmer and worked really, really hard, as I'm sure most farmers do, and was highly respected in the community. Like his father before him, he became a Justice of the Peace and was chairman of several committees. My mother was a stay-at-home mum and was beautiful both inside and out and had the patience of a saint. We lived in a large farmhouse and cooking was done on a wood range in a combined living dining room that was quite large and was the heart of the home. They had 6 children in 9 years, 4 girls and 2 boys, the boys being at either end. I shared middle spot with my fraternal twin sister, and I had a brother and sister either side. We were very self-sufficient. We had our own meat and vegetables, milk and eggs, and we had this huge big walk-in pantry that was full of bottled fruit and preserves and goodness knows what, and dry goods in drawers. We had no television, so we used to play cards a lot as a family, and we used to listen to the BBC News on an old valve radio. Our phone was a party line, shared by the whole road, and each home had their own unique call pattern. I was born in the late 50s and grew up in the 60s in rural New Zealand, and I could not have had a better childhood. We lived in such an idyllic area and we practically lived outside. Being in nature and having plenty of fresh air, I am sure attributed to our good health. And having a 1,000-acre playground of bush, creeks and wide open spaces didn't hurt. I was a bit of a daredevil as a child and lived life to the full, and I could not sit still for 5 minutes. Even though I was adventurous, I could still be quite shy around strangers. I had a bit of a growth spurt at primary school, growing to 5'8" at the age of 11, and became very accident prone until my brain caught up with the length of my legs. I continued growing up to my early 20s, reaching the height of 6 foot. Living in a rural area meant we had to go to boarding school, so believe it or not, I really enjoyed it. There were 160 boarders in a school of 1,000 girls, but I was never bullied, possibly to do with my height, but I also had a really good self-esteem. Christmas was especially memorable when the whole clan got together at the grandparents', one side of the family for lunch and the other for dinner. It was a lot of fun for us kids, and we used to get really excited when Grandma came out with this huge big wicker basket full of presents. We all contributed food, and even though it was summer, we still had hot roasts and Christmas pudding. After school, I took a shorthand typing course for a year because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and started working as a secretary. It was during this time that my twin and I decided we wanted to travel overseas, so in December 1979 we set off for London. Living and working in London was like one big continuous party, and my memories of that time are only positive. I have travelled extensively throughout Australia, Canada, the US, Europe, Ireland and Africa. The experiences are too numerous to share here, but they help shape the person I am today. I'm a far more tolerant and patient person because of that. Because I travelled early in my 20s, I never had my son till I was 37. He was an easy baby, didn't crawl, but walked at 9.5 months. He is now a wonderful father and has 2 beautiful children of his own. My relationship with his father never lasted, so just before my son turned 5, I returned to New Zealand 20 years after I first left. I became interested in complementary medicine while I was in London. So on my return home, I studied full-time for 2 years, finishing top of my class with a diploma in health science, majoring in aromatherapy, and started my own business, which I have been doing now for the last 24 years. Helping others has always given me joy, so when my son was younger, I took in foster children for weekend respite. And I currently assist an elderly woman with health issues, helping in the garden and the house, which I have done now for the last 12 years. I suffered from migraines when I first went through puberty and had terrible period pains, but I had no symptoms going through menopause. I had my appendix out at 20, and apart from my bone breakages, everything else is intact. I have an allergy to the glue on Band-Aids, and I come out in this red itchy rash, and I can't use suntan lotion for the same reason. My eyesight is something I definitely want to address. I do not want to have to rely on reading glasses ever again. I've landed on my head a few times and fell out of a tree landing on my back when I was a child, none of which, touch wood, have given me any repercussions to date. They weren't so great at the time. I enjoy my job, but it is physical, and I know it's not something I would have been able to sustain long term. And breaking both my arms has made it difficult for yoga. Having the opportunity to have my biological age reversed on the QArc is so awesome, and I just can't imagine what this is going to allow me to do in the future. I'm so excited about the future with QHS and am lucky that I will get to share it with two of my siblings who are both members. Thank you once again to all those wonderful people in QHS helping make this our Star Trek future.
Join us on the Prequel, where every story matters and every voice is heard. Because here at QHS, we're all about healing, learning, and growing together.